Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, as I forewarned you, I have had a request from Councillor John Garrett, who is giving his apologies tonight. Would I read a brief statement for him? So I hope you'll allow me to do so before moving on to basically, he has asked me to explain that he had hoped and intended to be present at this meeting and how disappointed he is that his health has not allowed him to do so. He's also asked me to state on his behalf that had he been able to attend, he would certainly have voted against the draft local plan in its current form being taken forward for public consultation. So that's the statement he asked me to read. If I can now move on to myself. First of all, although Councillor Holger and others have trailed the subject, I have to say that my own ward of Send, or mine and Councillor Patrick's, is just as heavily affected as many others, and we have probably just as many very unhappy residents, and I'm under no illusions about that. And I'm sure Councillor Patrick and I will be able to delighted if opportunities arise and downstream just to take a bit of that pressure off. But the more general point I wanted to make, and I don't think there's enough debate about it tonight, has been just how dramatically the whole demographic scene has changed in this borough. People tend to forget that when the last borough plan was approved, only in 2003, the opening paragraphs referred to the fact that the population of the borough is expected to remain stable at about 129,000. In terms of what's actually happened since, that is absolutely laughably wrong. Now, you could say, well, that's the competence of this council or whatever, but in fairness to us, the government predictions at that time were for a roughly stable population. But in fact, particularly in the last few years, birth rates have gone through the roof, and associated with that, population has increased dramatically. So that the last year for which the government have quoted official figures for the real population of Guildford was for 2012. They were only published last year, and by then, that's only 9 years later, it had actually gone up to 139,700. What's even more frightening is that in that 1 year between 2011 and 2012, the population of this borough had gone up by more than 2,000 people. That was 1.5%. And I have to say, that figure frightened me to death when I saw it last year, because anybody who wants to just do the maths, that turns into about a 35% increase over 20 years if that level of cumulative increase had continued. And forget 650, forgets 800, that was real problem territory. Now, mercifully, the government also produced their own official demographic projections that the DCLG oblige us to take account of, and those have never actually showed quite as apocalyptic sort of situation as the recent actual years have shown. But nonetheless, until about 3 weeks ago, the last projections that were available from the government still actually showed, I think the official figure worked out as 663 households per month. So in other words, we were a fraction above the 652 that we had, and that was one of the factors that at that time sort of reluctantly convinced me that a figure that high was appropriate, because that was the figure, whether we liked it or not, that the inspector would be looking at in any appeal situation. Now, as I think Councillor French has fortuitously or otherwise, 3 weeks ago on May 29th, the government, for the first time in 2 years, published a fresh set of projections, and the good news is that they are, slightly less frightening. But I mean, put that into perspective, what those new projections, the new improved and sort of version that we can always relax about, says the population of this borough by 2031 will be 161,000, and over the 20-year period of the plan, that still implies a 17.2% increase. That's a hell of a lot of extra people. Even worse, that those projections indicate that the vast majority of that growth is going to come from natural increase, the straightforward difference between anticipated births and deaths. That is going to arise from people born and brought up in this borough. And I'm worried, if nobody else is, about the future. I can't remember the young lady's name now. Miss Sandbrooks of this, even if nobody else is. I don't want the young people being born and brought up in our community to actually say, "Oh, we produced a plan, but we didn't make any allowance for anywhere for you to live or for any of you to work. Don't worry, we've got a plan B. You can arrive here and you can commute in from Woking or Basingstoke." Is that really what our young people deserve? Is that really the best that we can offer them? And even that begs the question of where on earth they're going to work, because we're not providing places of employment for them or homes. It would be thoroughly irresponsible for us to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, I sincerely hope when we've properly digested these new numbers, that they will allow some reduction in sort of green belt releases and so on. And I sincerely hope that some part of that sort of filters down to us in SEND. But there is absolutely nothing to be gained by deferring the whole process at this stage. We really do need to get on with it.
Councillor Ruth, please.